We love football.
How much are you having to just grind tape on some of these new guys and find out ways that they can, help your groups?
Yeah, obviously it's the next man up. I mean, I think I might have said it last time. It's like it's a new reality in the NFL. You just go through a lot of players, and that's just increased over the years. But yeah, you watch the film, you watch the plays that they played. Fortunately, a lot of these guys we brought in have experience, so you can see them do a lot of different things. And at the end of the day, it's just like I always say, you're just trying to put the 11 guys out there who can get a job done and the best 11 to get the job done. It's the same thing we've been doing and we'll keep doing.
What do you love most about this time of year?
This time of year? Oh, man, this time of year is great because obviously now everything starts getting bigger. If you're playing well and you're a good football team, then, each week that goes by, the bigger it gets, it just starts ratcheting up. And it's really what you live for is to play in big games. Obviously, it's a huge game we got right here. Going against Green Bay, a really good football team. We know them well. They know us well. And you know that going into it. So it's the challenge. I guess, and the fact that, all that hard work that you put into this whole thing is starting to come together and it's coming down the stretch and every play counts.
He missed his first kick of the year a couple days ago. I guess just what do you tell him after that? I know everybody's going to miss a few, but do you have to kind of have a conversation with him after his first one?
No. I mean, he missed a kick. I thought like the whole operation probably could have been better, honestly, on that play. That being said, we should have made the kick. I mean, you could say the operation should be better on darn near every one of these things if you're being critical enough. But like I've always said, the job of the kicker is to make it. If you play in high school, you got to have everything perfect. If you play in the NFL, everything can't be perfect. You still got to be perfect and make it. But no, he's having a great year for us. He's done a great job. He's still in a good spot. He's hitting the ball well. We kicked yesterday. He looks great. So I said it at the very beginning, there'll be ups and downs. No one would have known Tucker was going to go through what he's going through, but ultimately, they all go through it. And I think the other thing that I've always said in here is, like, when you're on a good football team, you find ways to win games. And when you're not on a good football team, it was the kicker's fault, and that's why you lost the game. But when I say that it doesn't come down to one kick, that's a perfect example of it. Like how we lost the game, everyone would say that, was what cost us a game. But it's not. In these games, every play counts throughout the whole course of every game. And all three phases got to execute well enough to overcome whatever the problems are, the challenges are on any given day. And there are a lot of them out there for every team, and it's why the bad teams have a hard time, because in order for them to win, they got to play perfect, and that's darn near impossible to do in this league. So anyway, when you're on a good team, you just find ways to win, and that's obviously what we did. But, yeah, obviously our job is to go out there and make the kick. It's certainly our standard or our expectation.
Punt at the end of that one that pinned him at the one, obviously a huge play, and a lot goes into that with your entire operation. Jack says, typically the aiming point for that's around the 10-yard line. Is there things your guys can do to encourage a returner to not field that, or is that more in the profile of who the return man is?
Yeah, I think there's definitely things you can do. You'll see some of these guys hit like a spinning type of kick or a knuckling type of kick. So there's certainly things that you could try to do, provided you feel like you can execute it well enough in those conditions or that situation. That could be a lot of things. The wind, the weather, obviously for us, indoors not so much, but now it's the field position. Is it got to be a 50-yard punt, or can it be a 40-yard punt? That changes how you feel about hitting different balls. So there's a lot that goes into that. At the end of the day on that play, man, he just hit a moonshot. That thing went straight up in the air, and it went up into the darkness of the stadium there. And their returner is a guy I love to death, Carter, and he played for us in Philly, just a great guy. And I think he just felt like he wasn't sure about it, and he just had to pull out of it. And so it was a great punt, and it ended up working out. Obviously, Dorsey did a great job down in the ball. It was a little bit close for my liking. We talk about fighting for every blade of grass, but I don't know if we're that literal. But it worked out, so we'll take it.
There was a snow game yesterday. got a chance to watch any of that game, Bills game at night. Like big picture wise, and since you have played obviously in some weather in Philadelphia, what can you take from games like that during the season that may help you if you need it down the road, Chicago or playoffs or whatever?
The snow games are definitely different. I've played in a few, one obviously in Philly against Detroit. But I think the biggest thing on those games, I kind of alluded to it, I think, last week when I talked to you about the kickoff return play. Like, as the weather starts to get cold and you go outside, the ball's not traveling as far, so what does a short kick look like? And then when you're talking about the surface and the footing, not being able to avoid as much on the coverage units, and versus like coming inside and all of a sudden guys are quick as can be and they can start, stop, change direction real fast, and you're not dealing with that. Those plays look different. And there is definitely a lot to playing outdoors in colder situations and footing less than ideal. And everything, the whole game becomes a little bit more physical, power play. It favors a different brand or style of football. You got to be much more cognizant of being under control as a player, so you're not running past the ball, slipping, and then end up opening up big gaps or spaces. So the whole game really kind of slows down, compresses, becomes more physical, playing through bodies, under control, not quite as fast and sudden. But, yeah, there's a lot to every play. For me, I've probably gained more experience just from being in those games, and then you're like, okay, next time I'll do that different, and you learn by doing really more than anything. But I think when you know what to look for and you watch a game like that, it's easier to see some of the mistakes, and you only know they're mistakes because you've made them before.
A lot of those opinions were probably formed in that 2013 game because probably not a game you think fondly back towards.
Yeah, no, weren't good for us. Well, at the end of the day, we won the game, so it was good. That's all that matters.
This is a little more bigger picture too, but Adam Vinatieri is a Hall of Fame finalist this year. Maybe, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but just special teams players, sort of their Hall of Fame candidacy, I guess, in general, and how much they belong in there. It's sort of a thing that, players have struggled with a little bit in terms of maybe play as many plays. Steve Tasker's a guy I don't even think of.
Yeah. I try to stay out of that opinion business on that stuff. I wish I was more like Belichick. I know you guys know that, but I feel like he's a historian of the game, and it's incredible, and I love hearing him talk about that. It's hard for me to comment. I feel like I know our players and I know the players we're playing against that week, and it's hard for me to put it all in perspective. But I do have a lot of respect for a lot of these guys who play those positions. Steve Tasker, I used to show a video of him every year talking about the kickoff. And it was a great video. He talked about the wind whistling through your ear hole as you're running down the field and things start to slow down. You're putting your hand out and you're making the tackle. It's like putting your hand out and cutting down a mailbox going 30 miles per hour or whatever. It was great. But anyway, so I used to play that video every year for all the rookies. So I have a lot of respect for him. Love watching him play the game. And then Vinatieri, this guy's as good as you can get. Big kicks. You talk about making all the big ones in big games and tough situations. In snow and weather, outdoors. He was fun to watch and a great guy in my experience the few times that I went against him and had a chance to talk to him. So I wish all those guys the best. But
in general, is identifying a punt returner that you trust one of the hardest things in your job?
I don't know if it's hard to identify. The great ones are easy, but we all know who they are. But I think the word trust is a good word when you're talking about the evaluation process because it is so high on the list. It's a volatile position, and the truth is Green Bay benefited from that in last week's game. Those guys put one on the ground. And Green Bay's put it on the ground. When you have a guy back there, we've been fortunate here because we've had Khalif back there my whole time here, and he's just incredible that way. He makes good decisions. He fields the ball. You don't really have to worry about that as much. And people tend to forget that could be an issue until all of a sudden it pops up. So having a guy back there, goal number one, as I say, is always give the ball back to the offense. And then goal number two is get positive yards. So that means catch catch it, get downhill, get started, which means you got to block well enough to get started, especially on their gunners. And then it also means you got to be penalty free. So you can't have penalties, else you're going backwards. So in order to get positive yards, there's a lot to that. But yeah, certainly a difficult position. The crazy thing is I was looking at all these statistics on that position and the returner position in general. And you guys know how I feel like. I feel like all those positions are important. I feel like every play is important, and it's hard to say that this offensive play is more important than this special teams play, or vice versa, because ultimately we're all fighting for a yard. And if the punt return team averages 13 yards a return, that's 13 less yards the offense got to drive the ball. And if we go 0 yards a return, then the offense is going to have to drive the ball 13 more yards. And then you start looking at the position in general, like the returner position for us, or punt return, we'll stay with that and say our punt returner averages 13.5 yards a return. On 30-something returns, we have like 400-something yards of offense. If you add the kickoff return in there, then it's another 300 yards of offense. We got 700 yards of offense in our returner position. There's only 2 players who have more than 700 yards in their positions, or two other positions on offense that have more yards. So they're huge plays in the course of a game. And I think sometimes people forget that when they're talking about who that returner is, or why are you playing that guy back there, or because you have a chance to create a lot of field position, third most field position on our team. And then if you went by yards per play, it's really the second highest yards per play. Our punt returner, I think J-Mo has like 18 yards something a play or a touch, and our punt returner's got 13. So anyway, it's like, and then go back to my time in Philadelphia, we had Deshaun Jackson back there and we had Darren Sproles back there. I mean, you played great players back there because you knew it could make a difference in the game, provided they're trustworthy enough. But so to me, like, you want you want somebody you can trust, but you also really want a great player there who can impact the game and take some of the load off your offense or your defense.
Khalif, but we see J-Mo continuing to take practice reps there. I'm just curious, like, how is the development going there? Is that something you could see in the future, him ever taking a kickoff or a punt for you?
I could definitely see it. I would say development, he's come a long way. So like when he first came in here, the catching ability was just like a lot of guys. I mean, he played wide out, and it was, needed some work. I'll just say it that way. But he's gotten much better. And then I think if you have a player like that and you want to play him back there, there's things you can do to help him out. I remember we had Jalen Rager, who was an explosive returner when I was in Philly, and he struggled catching the ball. So we really put him back there. Every time he was back there, we tried to put double team on both gunners and at least just get him started, or keep him out of harm's way, so that if he put the ball on the ground, there wasn't going to be anyone close by him. He could end up picking it back up and recovering it at worst case scenario. So there's ways you can help guys and still put the ball in an explosive player's hands. But
You or Dan.
so the one thing I love, I'll just tell you, the one thing I love, there's 2 guys on this team that would beg to be back there all the time, and I respect the heck out of them for it. But it's Terrion Arnold. He wants to go back there and touch the ball, and J-Mo, they want to go back there and touch the ball. And it's like, I mean, I love it. It doesn't mean they're going to get that, but I love the fact that they want to do it, because there's some other players who probably are hoping that their number's not called. It's just the reality of it. But you want the guys who want to touch the ball. I mean, that's how Darren Sproles was. That's how Deshaun Jackson was. I mean, those guys wanted to be back there. They wanted to touch the ball, and they wanted to make a difference in the game, and they knew that.